Family, what's good with you? I'm on an epic road trip. Um, wow, a lot is happening. And I realize that sometimes life is moving so fast that it's hard to keep up on social media. Not that what comes on social media is real life anyway. I think it's just kind of people's best representations. And so when I am living like my best moment, I just want to be in that moment. And when I'm like feeling not so at my best, I just want to be quiet and I don't want to put makeup on and I don't want to, do any of the things. But since I'm on this epic road trip and I took one day to just kind of park in the city to rest, to write, and then to get, up early tomorrow morning and get my things done, I wanted to do a couple of things. The first was I apparently need to get my algorithms back up, which I kind of, it's a part of the reason why I signed back on to social media. So I'm like, all right, let me put some stuff out there. But there's a lot that's happening, and I think that it's across the board. I had a memory of something that a choice that I made 10 years ago that when I made it, it was me just kind of operating in the moment, and now I'm having to go back and think about all of the decisions and the things that I've made like in the moment, and I realize that I make good decisions in the moment, even when there are casualties, as there was in this particular situation. So I was at a book club, and I write for reluctant reading teens and preteens because I want to pull them in to all of these cool spaces like book clubs where people are gathering, they're reading the same content, but they're not necessarily coming up with the same ideas. They're not landing in the same space. And so, I write gateway fiction because I see the future for my readers, my reluctant readers. And so, that's how we're getting down. And I have the ebook version for Premature Pleasures, my first book. So that's on. I'm gonna put that link, and I need y'all to go and grab that. But I wanted to get my readers into these really cool spaces like the space that I was in 10 years ago. And we were reading, it was a nonfiction text, and I think there was like a theological / philosophical bend to it. And it was accessible, it was told in the form of stories, but the writer was putting forth some really interesting insights. They were bold insights. And so I'm in this group, and the writer says something like evil is not a real thing, or something like that. And I'm like, the fuck? Like evil is not a real thing? Like where you get that bullshit from? Well, apparently there were some folks that were in the reading group that also had, done life, and they're like, oh, God sees our best selves or whatever. And so then I said, and trigger warning here for those who have battled a sexual assault, I said to their, like, boldly declaring that there is no such thing as evil, I named a particular act, and I said it with my chest, like just straight full out. And one of the folks who was in there that was like, was kind of standing for this anti-evil, note, like she grabs her chest and she's like, whoa, like that was so heavy, like you need to give trigger warnings. And I, at the time I was not aware of the need to be triggers, like, because I'm in spaces all the time where people say really fucked up stuff that hurts my feelings, and I just got to shake that shit off or address it. But this whole idea that somebody has to give me a trigger warning has never been the thing that I've thought of, which is why when she said to me, like, I need to be mindful of the trigger warning. And what she had said was, when you're in the pulpit and you're preaching and you never know. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, we're not in the pulpit right now. We're in the living room. We're having this conversation, and what you have said is that there is no such thing as evil. And what I have given you is an example of what I believe is a very heinously evil experience that is a reality in our context. Speak to that, please. She starts to cry and to say that is her experience. The very thing the exact situation that I named is what she had experienced. And so now she's in tears, And now I'm saying to her, okay, so talk to me about how that is your experience, but somehow evil isn't a thing. And I realized that like it was just way too much for her. And I wasn't, in any, and so like she had to excuse herself and go to the restroom and collect herself. But what I thought was really powerful and profound was how that level of vulnerability broke open the whole room. And suddenly everyone was sharing from this rich, very deep, and very vulnerable space. And she missed that exchange because she was so wounded by what I had triggered in her. But everyone else that was in that meeting, we stayed the course, and we had this really robust, vibrant conversation about like what evil is and these very, profound examples, from our own lived reality. I left that book club not knowing what else I needed to do. The woman who had this situation in her mind, she needed to somehow get me to be silent. And that was my problem. It was the idea that evil gets to be all that it's going to be, but somehow my ass has got to be quiet. They don't have to chin check the people who violated them. That's between them and their therapist. But if they could do that privately and somehow get me to publicly be quiet, and I'm like, the fuck kind of option is that? It was not a good one for me. And so I think that was one of my really sort of definitive spaces where I recognized that I had to be okay with loss. I had to be okay with woundedness. I had to be okay with people being triggered. I had to be okay that even when I attempted to build sort of an equal space where we can all have our say, and they attempted to silence me, and that I needed to somehow build a life around their triggers. And I was like, hard pass for me. So as much as that book club and my whole life's work is about getting people into those very intimate spaces, I had to dip out on that one. I am doing, hosting, facilitating a series of workshops that are all about helping women, and particularly Black women, have their fucking say unapologetically. I feel like there is so much that we have experienced, and so many people have thought that somehow our silence best suits them, when we really have incredible insight. And I want to spend some time doing that. Thank you to everyone who over the summer signed up for the lunch and learns and the dinner salons for the creative placemaking, creativity and commerce workshops like that. That has been rich. And I made the mistake, and it was a mistake, I've corrected it. Made the mistake of saying, okay, yes, and I'll meet with everyone one-on-one, and that was kind of a part of it. I have since adjusted, the whole practice, so it won't be inclusive, everyone getting a one-on-one, but there are some benchmarks that I've set up for those that I would love to spend time one-on-one with, because what I need to be is not the only one that's out here taking these shots. I need to be in spaces with other people who, just like me, is not trying to placate to evil and not trying to placate to people who want us to be silent. The fuck? There's no evil? Really, I'm just supposed to sit there with that bullshit. I just couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, yo, sis, evil firsthand, so I can't believe that you out here standing for this whole anti-evil thing. But I realized that perhaps one of her coping mechanisms, one of the ways that she was able to handle that trauma, was to give it a different narrative until she was able to get to a space where she could do the hard work of excavating the violation that she had experienced. But not all of us are triggered or traumatized in that way. And there are some very important things that we need to be out there saying, and we can't, be sitting around waiting for someone to give us permission. We just got to say that shit. And so I'm going to post the link, and I'm going to be promoting while I'm traveling. I'm just going to pop in to different, coffee shops or whatever on the road and just post a link. And I really want you to sign up for these workshops because, again, I am one voice and there are a million voices and even more stories that are about excavating the good that will serve all of us. And I just don't want us, I don't want to be the only one that's out here like, I'm not afraid to, blah, 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 blah. And I know I'm not. There are a ton of, this is a moment for bold voices, which is why I feel like it's very safe for you to come on in and to do that thing. So I'm going to post the link in the bottom, and I would love, love, love for you to join me. So let's do this, fam. All right. And pray when you think of me, lift up, that I have traveling grace on, this epic road trip. Blessings, fam.